Howdy, I'm Derek, and today I want to help you understand how all of the Excel formula, cell reference, characters, or symbols work. You might be thinking, I've used Excel for over 10 years. I know how all those things work. If that's for you, feel free to skip toward the end where there's a couple of newer things that you probably haven't used just yet. All right, let's get started. First symbol you absolutely need to know is the $sign. This is going to guide how cell references are copied and pasted. Notice in the sheet we're looking at here, the cell references in C17, they don't have any $signs in front of them. They're all completely relative. So if we were to copy and paste that down and below, notice some of the things aren't going to work, okay? If we go down the bottom here, you double click or press F2, you notice that those references are moving along with it, and that's not what we want. So we're going to undo all that. Now notice down here, okay, the things are working correctly. We've got the date ranges and the store and the account there, and then the filter there, and then that's all referencing data in another sheet. It's working as intended. So if we were to copy this up and to the right, it's all going to work. So the ones are the same there, the columns stay the same, rows stay the same exactly as we intended. Okay? Now, here's how to know which of these reference types work. If you're referencing an input or an assumption cell and it's the only one, use $signs in both places. Okay, so if we look at this guy right here, notice that it is J16. Okay, so it's got $signs before both. It will never move no matter where we copy it to. Okay, if you're referring to columns to the left, such as the store and the account number here, put a $sign before those columns. Okay, like B26 here. If it is referring to rows above, such as the dates here, okay, then you want to put the $sign before the numbers or before the row numbers, right? So notice E15 and E16, that $sign's in front of those row numbers, okay? That's the first one. The second symbol you got to know is the colon. This is pretty common. This defines the top left and the bottom right cells in a contiguous range. So if you're seeing right here, we've got A1 through A10. Colon means through, so it's going to include everything in between there. Okay. Now, if you were to just drag and drop with the mouse, sometimes with the keyboard, it'll automatically insert that column for you. I'm sorry, colon for you, not column. It will not put in those $signs. So based on what we just said before, add those where they're needed, right? Now, the third one, very similar to that, is the comma. Notice how we can have separate references together, right, that are separated by a comma. Now, the comma will also separate your arguments within a function. Like the sum one here, you can have several different ranges you're summing. So just know what you're trying to do with that comma. Could be separating cell references or other arguments. And then you can combine these. So notice that we have a comma separating two ranges that have colons in them. So two contiguous ranges. Okay? Again, pretty basic. The fourth symbol you need to know is the exclamation point. Notice in this formula right here, we have the data sheet, exclamation point, cell A2. Basically, that exclamation point is just saying there's a sheet name and it's in front of the reference. Now, note that when it's got any spaces at all, one or more spaces, in that sheet name, you're going to need to have single quotes. So that's our next one we're going to look at. Notice here we're referring to another sheet that has a space in the sheet name. And we have to have those single quotes. And Excel's going to add that for you, okay? If you're going to just click around or if you're going to use your keyboard to move around, it'll add those things for you. You don't have to type the whole thing out. Now, similarly, if you start to include other files, notice that Excel is going to add, or you need to type in, the brackets. So the square brackets around the file name. And that's going to be in front of the sheet name. Okay, so Excel builds this whole thing. Now the whole file path is displayed here. When that file is open, you'll see that file path disappears in case it goes somewhere else. You're going to need to have those single quotes around everything from the file path, through the file name, through the sheet name, and before that exclamation point. Okay, now we'll take a quick detour here for curly brackets. These aren't necessarily technically used for formula references, but you might see them to indicate a couple of things. One, for an array of values, especially with some of the newer dynamic array functions. So notice in this formula, we are defining a couple of items within the array, so they're separated by commas. If it were text values, you would wrap those in double quotes to indicate that they're text. And then we're just going to stack that vertically with transposed couple of cells from that first one. So if you see curly brackets used like that, just know that you're trying to kind of give it an array, whereas when you have a cell range, that's already an array. So you don't need to do that with cell references technically, but because you're starting to see that more and more, just want to make sure that we cover that. And then finally, the two newest symbols. First one is the hashtag. Now you might be thinking, hey, social media is now in Excel. Not quite. Notice that we have a dynamic array function here in cell A1. So it's sequence, one of the most powerful functions in Excel, definitely a great helper function. We're just saying, hey, we want a sequence of 10 numbers across 10 rows. Very basic. There's other arguments you can use, but that's the most basic way to use that one. So in here in cell D5, notice that we have A1 hashtag. What that is meaning, let's look at it without the hashtag. Okay, it just refers to A1. But as soon as we add a hashtag, it's telling Excel we want the entirety of that array. So it needs to have an array. So if we were to copy this to another one, notice we're going to get a ref error because there's no array cell spilling from B1. Okay, so that tells Excel we want to use that. So whether you're just going to spill the same results or you want to use those to sum or to count or something, that hashtag is great for making dynamic references. It is going to update along with that source one. So notice that it grows automatically if we were to update that. Similarly, the period. This is the newest symbol that you can use in formulas. Super new, okay? You might not even have access to it in your Excel version if it's relatively new, okay? This is also kind of a shortcut for the trim range function. So we'll touch on that in just a minute. Now in cell D5 here, notice that we're referencing cells A5 through A50. There's a colon, but then there's a period right after that colon, and it's telling Excel, hey, trim everything on the tail end of that has null or blank values. So notice that even though we're referencing all those cells, it's trimming everything after cell A14 because the values are blank. Okay, not just blank, there's nothing there, not even a blank text value. And then similarly, we can put the period before. Notice how it's trimming everything from before the first reference there, so cell A5, right? Now, you can combine both of those. So notice that we have the period before and after the colon in this long range, and we're getting that same result because it's trimming everything before cell A5 and after cell A14. Okay, so you can use those in both ways. Now again, this is a shortcut for the trim range function. So notice that when we use trim range here, there's a couple other arguments within that, so you can specify kind of how it works for rows, columns, and everything. Most of the time, people are trying to trim rows. Most of the time. Not always, but most of the time. So the dot operator, which is what people often call a period, is a great shortcut for this. Almost every time I've seen this used, it's just like this. We're trying to trim everything off the end to account for any growth in the data. But just to help you understand what's happening here, if we were to update this, notice how the ones that refer to that are trimming or removing on the tail end are going to update automatically. Okay, but notice also what happens when we remove those. Those are going to update automatically, but because we're still referring to A14, and that's the hard end, we're not giving it a trim at the end of that, it's going to return zeros. Okay, so those are not being trimmed because that's the way we told it. Just take note of that when deciding to add where to add those periods. Usually they are added after, but sometimes you might want to use both or put it on the front end, or maybe even take columns into account. Okay, that is it for our list of formula reference symbols. If you've been following along, you are now ready for building some awesome dynamic formulas all throughout your workbooks. Make sure to download the example file and the article that accompanies this video with the link in the comments. And if you want to learn more about the top formula functions you should be using, check out the resource links also in the comments below. And lastly, if you want to save hundreds of hours a year with Excel tasks that are really common, check out the XLEV8 Excel add-in with hundreds of custom tools that give you shortcuts and bulk automations of all kinds. Just go to the app section at www.xlevate.co or use the link in the comments. And if you enjoyed this, please like, comment, share, and tag your friends, and subscribe so you don't miss out on other tools, tips, and tricks. Thanks for watching, and have an excellent rest of your day.